You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and my guest today is Tina Baxter. And Tina is a nurse, advanced practice registered nurse, among other things, some board certified ones. And she is so multidisciplined that I'm going to let her go through all the different things that she's involved in and the businesses that she started and running. And I mean, it's just absolutely impressive. So Tina, let us know a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And I want to say I'm very glad to be here today. Yes, I'm a nurse practitioner, an advanced practice nurse. I'm board certified in gerontology, so I'm a gerontological nurse practitioner. And I have a specialty in older adults and a subspecialty in geropsychiatry. So I still practice clinically 4 days a week for a federally qualified community health center. And then in my other life, I am the owner of Baxter Professional Services, where I provide legal nurse consulting services to attorneys to help them win their cases and make sense of the mess of the medical records. I'm also the founder of the Nurse Shark Academy, helping nurses build and launch their own businesses because we're experts in nursing and experts in business.
I love it. I love it. I love that you're just kind of putting your things out to lots of different areas that are all related, right?
Yes. My philosophy is that everything you do should have a flow to it. So my whole goal is to help people and for people to have been, better off for having met me. And if that's helping an attorney win a case or discussing medications with a patient or helping a nurse launch her business or just answering a simple question, as long as everything flows together and it's part of that rhythm of life, that music of life, as we like to say, then I think it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that way of looking at everything. So everything is all, vocabulary is not my strong point today.
Harmonious.
Not just harmonious, but linked.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and it's not just in your field. It's in every field how you can get certain strengths and skills, and you can do them in 5 different places and use it.
Yes.
Which a lot of people think that they're just pigeonholed in one place.
That's one of the unique things about nursing is that you don't have to be pigeonholed in one place. There's so many specialties and subspecialties that you can get into. I mean, you've got nurses that work in neuro, so they're dealing with stuff with the brain. You've got nurses that are strictly pediatrics, and then you can subspecialize to be just a NICU nurse, like working with the most vulnerable of the pediatric patients, the really young babies that are even, maybe not developed fully. And so there's so many ways that you can take a nursing career. That's what I love about the variety and the spice of being a nurse, because you can do so many different things.
Oh, I think that's great. Yeah. And even though my audience probably is not a lot of youngsters looking for a profession or younger people, younger than us, I think even for their parents and grandparents listening, that's a real revelation.
I've seen a lot of nurses as they've gotten older shift in their career. And so maybe you started out as a bedside nurse or med surg, but now you're working in a specialty clinic, or maybe you're teaching. And so there's so many different ways that you can take what you have and to turn it into something new. And it's not just to like let those skills go to the wayside. Some nurses are doing things like working with essential oils and helping pets. I mean, there's just so many different things that you can use those skills. And so my philosophy is, your career, your profession grows with you as you grow and get older. You shift and change, and you impact. We have a saying in nursing that, once a nurse, always a nurse. And you'll take it to the grave. And I've seen it in the nursing home where nurses that are now residents are telling the young nurses what they should and should not be doing. And they're often right. So you never forget it. They may forget their name, but doggone it, they remember that they were a nurse.
Wow. That's so, I shouldn't say funny. That's so impressive. Wow. Huh. So let's shift a little bit to talking about some of these areas that you're particularly specializing in, having to do with over 50, more the actually gerontology is even older than that, right?
Yes. Thankfully, yes.
Yeah. Now, don't. Some of us are already there, so
Not quite there yet.
Well, I am. I think they still have 65, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Here's the interesting thing. Because people are living longer, you have different age groups in that bracket of what we consider older adults. So you have the young old, then you have the old, and then you have what we call the old. So if you hit, I'd say 85 and up, you make it to old. Yeah. And that's a good thing, right? And what I always tell my patients and my clients is that, it doesn't matter what age you are, as long as you continue to live and try to live your best life.
Yes.
I just saw an article of a lady that got her bachelor's degrees at 90 years old. I think that's awesome.
Oh, I know.
I think that's awesome.
I agree.
She had a goal. Yeah. She wanted to finish her degree, and she did it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think that's wonderful. And the other part of that is that that's what keeps your brain young and working. You use it.
Yes. What I see are the people now, I'm from the Midwest, so we are a very big industrial belt community, right? Where we used to have all the factories, GMs, Fords, etc. And what I've observed is that those persons that worked all their lives in the factory, they get out, they get forced to retire, they retire, and then within a couple of years, they're gone. And that's because they didn't have something, to me, and not in all cases, but they didn't have something to keep them going. And so I always say retire from your job, but not from life. Right?
Yeah.
So find something to have meaning in your life. I had a resident. She was a school teacher, retired music teacher. And we were talking and trying to find something for her to do that would give her some meaning. And so she began to play the piano at the nursing home because that gave her a chance to connect with others. We had another lady that had a beautiful voice. And so every day she would sing opera in the nursing home.
Wow.
It gave her a chance to give back and find something for her to do. So I'm a big proponent in whatever stage of life you're in, find meaning in that stage. And maybe you do have some functional limitations. You can't get out and get around as much as you can. Yeah. But what can you do? I had one lady that she knitted little mittens and head beanies for babies for the nursery at the hospital. So whatever skill you may have, it may not seem big, it may not seem much, but I bet to someone that's valuable.
Well, and the other part of that is two of those things that you were mentioning, one having to do with music and the other having to do with knitting. Both of those things are so good for your brain. and
Yes.
keeping your brain going. There's so many studies out there about how important music. And I know my mother, who was a big knitter, in fact, she made this,
Oh, wow.
right? And, Afghans and I can't tell you how much I have around here that she made. She lived to be 94, and it wasn't until she was like about 92 that she started having some brain
Mm-hmm.
issues. And I put that up to some other things going on. But anyways, I totally, she used to play mahjong, and she knitted.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, her brain was just boom like that until probably when she hit 90, 91.
My grandmother lived to be 102.
Ah,
And up until like a couple of years before she died, she was at home living with my uncle. And she loved baseball. That was her thing.
My mother did too.
She had chickens for as long as I could remember, up until the latter part of her life. She's still, until she got, too weak to do so, but she would still put her wash out on the line to dry, because she had a dryer. She just didn't like it. She'd only use it in the wintertime when she had to. And so she did all these things. And I just remember we had her 100th birthday party.
Oh, wow.
And had a big family reunion for it. And she was still very active and going to her church circle. She never drove, so my uncle took her where she wanted to go. But it was just wonderful to see, her life. And then when she moved into the assisted living, from what I understand, is that she sort of gained another life, because she had people her own age that she could talk to.
I love it.
And so she enjoyed her latter part of her life. And so I think of that, because sometimes we think that if we have to move into a facility or we need some help, that it's the end of things, but it doesn't have to be. There's a lady that I take care of, and she's a church member, and she's in the nursing home. And she actually flourished more in the nursing home than she did when she lived out in the community, because she's always on the go. Every outing that they have, she's made friends with so many of the families that they just take her to places, and she's always doing something. And she's found a life for her where she knows that she's safe. They take good care of her. And she's got a freedom that she didn't have before. So I'm very glad for that.
Yeah, and I think there's and it isn't that this isn't necessarily true in some cases, but I think there's a misunderstanding. And a lot of people think that, if I have to go into an assisted living, then, life is going to be over for me and I'm not going to be doing anything. And these places have so many programs now. And like you say, field trips and other people who have the same kind of experiences. And when they have stayed, so many of these people, when they stay home, their friends die off, their relatives, their family, whatever, have moved other places, and they're very isolated.
Yes. It made me think, one of my buildings, they took the residents whitewater rafting.
Oh my God.
So there's pictures of them doing that. And so I'm going to say, if you have to choose a facility, look at the facility, the amenities that they offer, visit, maybe stay a couple days just to try it out. But look and see what kind of activities they offer. And I'm going to say, choose one that has a happy hour.
Thank you.
A lot of my buildings will have a happy hour. They'll bring in music. They have entertainment. One of these facilities, they have their own movie theater.
Wow.
I mean, so there's the gamut of things. And I know there's several people that are navigators and advocates that can help you find the facility that's right for you or your loved one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a good thing to know. Yeah. Yeah. Is there a group, like an association or something that they belong to that people can go to find an advocate in their area?
There are some websites that you can go to, A Place for Mom is one of them. And you can, and they have places all over the United States, and they'll help you find a place that will fit your budget, that will find the amenities that you want. I've had so many people that they move into a community where maybe they're living independently in a condo, so that they don't have, they're not in a facility, but they're in a senior living condo community that is next to an assisted living. It's owned by the assisted living, so that if they need to transition to the assisted living, maybe they've had a surgery or something and they need to recover, they can go there for a few weeks, get rehab, recover, then move back to their condo. If they get to a place where they can't live alone, they can seamlessly move into the condo, from the condo to the assisted living. And then if they ever were to need skilled care, a lot of them also have a placement for skilled care if they need that level of care later on in life. I've had several that have done well and stayed in assisted living and were on the go. I had one lady, she was from New York, living here in Indiana, and she ended up going back and forth to visit family in New York, and they would come get her and fly her out there. She was on the go.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Yeah. It's, I think a lot of people also don't realize that you really don't have to have a lot of money.
Not always.
To do that. Yeah.
You can find some places that have Medicare and Medicaid waivers. And the Medicaid waivers can help you find an assisted living. And again, it depends on what level of need that you have. So some assisted livings are just basically you get a little apartment, but you care for everything. You fix your own meals, to assisted livings where there's amenities and they provide everything for you. So I've seen the gamut. In fact, there's one here locally that they offer short-term leases for people who don't want to stay at home during the winter because they're concerned about having to take care of the home and everything. So they'll stay during the winter time in the assisted living and move back out to their house in the summer. So it just depends on what you want.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. There's a larger and larger number of people. And so they've got a big market.
Well, you think about it, the baby boomers are getting older. And they're used to having amenities that, maybe the older generations didn't worry about, right? Because those older generations came out of the Depression and everything. So they're, but this generation is a lot different. And they're used to having the golf course next door, and they're used to having their own bowling alley and all those different things.
Yeah. And I think they're in better health for their age.
Yes.
And so they already do a lot of activities, and they probably don't want to give them up.
No. And why should you?
I agree. Totally. Yeah. Because I know a lot of them, they'll go on trips and.
Yeah, I have a friend, she's a travel agent, and she specializes in trips for people that have to travel alone. And so she'll have these travel parties, and you'll get to meet people, particularly women, that still want to travel, but maybe they've lost a spouse and they don't have anyone to go with. And so she makes up those trips for them, and she's a travel agent. They have wonderful trips, and they become travel buddies, and they'll go all over the world.
Oh, how neat. Wow. Huh. Okay, something to look forward to. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So we've talked a little bit about people getting older and the opportunities that people have now that their own parents probably never had. And you also your company also does, and I'm sure you as well, do a lot of wellness coaching, disease coaching, and things like that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that's probably not an area that a lot of people even realize exists.
Well, I know that there's a lot of wonderful wellness coaches out there, right? I've met several of them. I want to help you lose weight. I want you to, get healthy and all this. But I thought about, what about the people where the horse has left the barn, right? You already have diabetes. You have high blood pressure. You may have had a stroke. You may have arthritis. What about making your life the best that you can live? And so I taught a chronic disease management course through a local community organization here in Anderson. And out of teaching that course to a group of seniors through the churches, it really emphasized to me that what we don't know how to do is to manage the life that we have right now. And I'm like, so how can I help you do that? So we talk about, okay, if you have diabetes, let's look at some simple ways that you can make changes that will further and better your health. Is there something that we can do? For example, I had a lady that was complaining that she didn't have the energy to do her housework and get the things done. I said, so why don't we break it up into chunks? Instead of trying to do everything all at once, because that's what you were used to doing, right? We're used to going, okay, I'm going to be doing the laundry. I'm going to do all the laundry, get it folded, get it put away. We're used to doing that. I said, but you have to work smarter because you have debilitating arthritis. And so you can't do this for a 2 or 3 hour stretch. It will wear you out. So let's block it and do this. So let's do the chunk. Let's get all the laundry that you want done for that day, gather that up, put it next to the washer, sit down, have a cup of tea and rest a little bit. Then we're going to get up. We're going to put it in the washer. Then we're going to sit down and watch your favorite television program for a half hour. Then we're going to get up, put that from the washer to the dryer, and we're going to break it up so that you're not exhausting yourself. That was a revelation for her. Because we're so used to doing things the same way we've always done them. And I don't know about you, but I just can't hop up out of bed like I used to. It takes a minute or two.
Yeah.
And so I tell her, let's break it up into bite-sized chunks so that you're not derailing your entire day, or worse, getting so tired and worn out you have to spend a week in bed recovering from doing your laundry. And so let's rethink that so that also you're not shaming yourself because you can't do what you're used to do. And so we look for creative ways for you to get what you need done and how to conserve your energy, particularly someone with COPD, very hard to breathe. Okay, you're probably not going to be able to stand at the stove and cook a meal if you're on oxygen and you can't walk across the room without getting out of breath. So how can we simplify things for you and maybe get the meals prepped in advance so that all you have to do is pop it in the oven? And so we talk about practical things like that. The other thing that I do is I help people manage their stress. Now, I don't know about you, but 2022 was particularly stressful for me, and I can imagine it was for a lot of us coming out of the pandemic, adding on all the other stuff that's going on in the world, wars and all this. And so how do we manage that stress so that it's not affecting us mentally or physically? And so what I teach people is how to understand the connection between the mind and the body. So how do we self-regulate our emotion? It's okay to feel those emotions and understand them, but we need to understand where they're coming from and why they're there. A lot of times with anxiety, we don't know where the anxiety is coming from. We don't know, but maybe we can drill down and figure out, okay, are you anxious about the fact that you recognize that maybe you aren't able to do as much as you used to? Are you anxious because you have a big trip coming up and you're worried about traveling alone? Are you worried about the bills that you have to pay? So let's look at some concrete solutions to help you manage that stress. And so we go through some exercises so that you can recognize how your body's responding to that tension. We'll work through some body work. And we can do a lot of this remotely, by the way. You don't have to physically be here. We can do it online as well. And so I work through that, and I work with all ages on the stress management. So my youngest was an elementary school student who had a lot of anxiety going to school. And so we kind of worked through that. And for him to understand, okay, when you're feeling anxious, where does it hurt in your body? Where do you feel that tension? And start to recognize, oh, I'm feeling anxious. And I'm anxious because, and how do we cope with that? And how do we come up with a strategy so when that happens again, you'll know what to do? And then I introduce some relaxation techniques, some mindfulness work, and things that we can work on together.
Yeah. And that in particular, that is applicable to any age.
Yes.
Totally. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think that's one of the downsides of COVID, or that COVID era, I'll call it, is just that people have just become way more anxious.
And I would say more insular. We're more into our own little bubble. And so what happened is we got quarantined, everybody staying at home, and so the world outside became a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And now and particularly with the patients that I work with who have agoraphobia, now you're asking me to reemerge and go out into that dangerous place, because that's what we labeled the world as dangerous. So how do we come back from that? How do we change our mindset around that and recognize that, yes, there may be some elements of danger out there. I mean, crime.
Yeah.
You still have to worry about the flu. It's flu season. Flu's taking people out. RSV is high right now among kids and elders. So, making those decisions to be safe, but not live in fear. And that's something that we have to really negotiate and change how we approach things, and recognize that there's dangers out there, but I don't have to live in fear.
Right. Absolutely. And there, and there are things, very easy things, although I know they're very controversial, like wearing a mask.
Yes. When
you go to a crowded supermarket, and if you're older, probably 60 or older, or 65 or older, maybe that's the best thing for you to do.
Yes.
It's not that difficult.
Think about this, and it's not just for COVID, but there's also the flu and other illnesses that are out there.
Yes.
And I think we would all be healthier if we recognize that maybe using the mask might help us with things like pollution and other things too.
Also
particularly
true.
if you have breathing problems, breathing disorders.
Yeah, right.
A week or so ago, I happened to be going into the gas station and getting ready to leave for the holidays and everything. And I just went to pick up a newspaper and a couple of items. And I'm in there, and just before I get up to the counter, the cashier starts coughing. And I'm not talking about a little, no. This is a deep, right? Phlegmy cough. Like 4 times before I get up there. She wasn't coughing when I came in, but I observed, 1, she did not have a mask on, and 2, she was coughing into her hands. And I'm like, I don't know what you have. I was like, I should have brought my mask, but I don't want you touching my items because I don't know what you have. I mean, you could have the flu, and that's been particularly devastating, the flu. I mean, I've had people who've gotten the flu and have been in bed for 2 weeks.
And
I'm like, I can't afford to have the flu. I've got too much to do, let alone anything else. But it's just, I'm like, why are you at work? And I think we've shifted away from this. If you have any symptoms, stay home, to now employers are saying, again, we don't care, just show up to work. And so we're going back the other way. And I think that could be to our detriment, particularly during this season.
Absolutely.
I don't know if your people know, but a lot of the hospitals are now full again.
And
I've noticed this across the country.
Yes, here as well. Absolutely. And so much of it, I mean, if you stop and think about it, it makes sense that people are getting the flu much more so than they had been, because we all were wearing masks for a couple of years. And so our immunity has gone down. And not everybody goes and gets their flu vaccine. We did, but it doesn't mean a lot of other people did. And so consequently, and they're walking around without their masks, and you only need one person.
Yes.
You don't need a whole group of people in order to catch the flu.
And people aren't washing their hands like they should. So I'm going to put a big plug out there. Wash your hands. That's the most important thing you can do.
Yes, we have hand sanitizer and everything, Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
I carry it everywhere.
We went to a bookstore the other night, and there weren't many people in there. And I thought, okay, well, I don't need to wear my mask. I took it with me because you never know. And some little kid had this big hacking cough, and I went, time to put my mask on. Okie dokie. Because you can tell when somebody's covering their mouth or not when they're coughing, and little kids don't know how to do that anyway.
No.
But he or she, I don't even know what it was because couldn't see. And they kept doing it. It wasn't just like one time. And I'm like, okay, number one, I'm moving out of this area and I'm putting my mask on. I'm not going to deal with that at all if I can help it. So,
these are just common sense measures.
Thank you.
I don't know why it was so politicized. I mean, I do know why, but I mean that I think we need to take a step back and think that maybe this is something we should do every year during cold and flu season. Mask up, no problem.
Yeah.
I have asthma, so I don't mind being inconvenienced for a little while.
Go.
Right?
Yeah.
I would prefer everyone to stay safe. That's my philosophy. Again, I'm not going to cast aspersions to anyone. Do you? But don't be offended if I put my mask on, particularly if you're coughing. I'm going to do that because I also know that I work with the public and I'm very public facing and I don't want to spread anything.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And it's, if you don't, like you say, somebody else doesn't want to do it, that's not my issue, but don't cast aspersions on me because I do put one on. That to me is kind of over the line. If you have a right to not wear one, I have a right to wear one. So,
exactly.
But
personal choice.
Now, exactly. That's what we've all been fighting for, right? On every side of the of the political spectrum, as they say. So, it's amazing to me how much life and the world, and not just us, not just the U.S., has changed as a result of COVID.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing because we've had pandemics before. This is not the first one that's hit the world. But this one, for some reason, just seems to have made everybody get crazy.
I think one of the reasons is because we were so complacent. When you look at the pandemics that we've had in the past, people pretty much knew that there wasn't much they could do other than take the safety precautions. And you had the plague, you had to get away from the person at the plague. That was pretty much all you could do. And unfortunately, you left them to die because you didn't have the science to help them. But now we have thought, okay, we've eradicated smallpox and we've eradicated polio and we've eradicated all these things so that we're complacent to something that we can't see, that's transmissible through the air, right? And people just, I think we just weren't ready in our mindset to have to deal with something like this because it was almost like, how dare nature come up with this and inconvenience us when I'd rather be, at my favorite coffee shop sipping my latte, and now you're telling me it's closed because I can't be in there in social distance.
Yep. No, that's true. Yeah, everyone was used to the flu coming through once a year. Right.
Yes.
But and even then, I don't think anyone ever thought about how dangerous the flu is.
Yes.
Because every year there were people dying from it.
Right.
And people ending up in the hospital.
And I think because most of us have experienced a 24-hour flu. Right. That comes and goes. We get better. Yes, we feel like crap for a while. Pardon me, but we feel better. And then it seems like we were kind of expecting that with COVID, and when it wasn't like that, we didn't know what to do. I remember when we first closed down as an agency, it was like, oh, we'll just close for a week, and we'll probably open up again next week, and that didn't happen. And then it was like, okay, so now we're closed. So we're just going to have people who come to the office, but have everybody come in remotely. All the patients we see remotely, unless you have to absolutely see them in person. We're sending everybody home and everybody's going to work remotely. And we did that for over a year And then slowly people started coming back to the office. And it was amazing. Now, I work in psychiatry, so we were fortunate in that we were able to work remotely and see our patients and keep people out of the hospital psychiatrically for the most part. And be there for our patients. Now, for those other agencies in med surg and medical, it was difficult for them to be there on the front lines. But what we saw was initially, everybody was pro healthcare workers and you're all great and all this.
Yes.
Now, as it's gone on, we're horrible again. And so it's sort of like we had a second wave that happened to us in psychiatry, because now we've had people that stayed out of the hospital, but they know people that died. They've been isolated. So they're more depressed, they're more anxious, they're more fearful. Sometimes they didn't take care of their mental illness, so they were afraid to go to the hospital. They didn't take care of their physical health. I mean, I had one patient that died of a very curable disease simply because he's afraid to go to the hospital. And add on top of that the wave of burnout, depression, anxiety that comes from healthcare workers, from having to be there. And so it's sort of like we had a double wave hit us in the mental health field. And then you have to worry about your colleague that's next to you as well, because you're dealing with all the stuff that people are dumping on you. And how do you maintain your sense of well-being? And so it's a very interesting time to be in the middle of all that, and then adding all the other things that happened in the last couple of years. And, it is a lot. But I want to say I am so impressed by the resiliency in people and the ability to bounce back. And everybody for a while kept saying, we can't wait till we get back to normal. We can't wait till we get back to normal. And then the realization that, okay, we have to reset and this is a new normal.
That's right. Yes.
And maybe we can't do things like we used to, but maybe we can be better going forward.
Yes.
And so I like that idea of, maybe we had to make a change. This forced us to make a change, but maybe it was a change for the better. And it's all how we frame it.
No, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. And I think, well, we all know how much human beings like to change. Like none, right?
None.
Zero, maybe a negative number. And this really made everybody really change. And the other thing that I think is kind of interesting is that people here, have just been for years complaining about all of this. And it's like, all they had to do was look at China and say, we had it so much easier, right? I mean, China, they literally locked down until about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or something, and no vaccines. And, I think we had it a lot better than a lot of other places.
I think so too. But what I noticed and observed coming out of this is that it allowed us the opportunity to really focus on what was a priority.
Yes.
Family, our health.
Yes.
Our mental
health. Our communities.
Our communities. As opposed to the other things out there. So people had a shift in priorities, and that's, I think, part of why you see that, what they call the Great Resignation.
Yes.
People realizing, I don't have to be somewhere where I'm not happy. I can look for what will make me happy in my life. And I think that as a society, that may be actually a good thing. Why stay in a career that's making you completely miserable? Why stay at a company that's making you completely miserable? Is it there more out of life? And it's answering and asking those questions that I think will ultimately make us a better society.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. So that sounds like a good place for us to kind of wrap up here. Otherwise, I think you and I could probably talk for at least another half an hour.
Well, as long as you don't talk about Marvel movies or things like that, we can go.
Sorry,
if we start on that topic, we'll be here forever.
I used to collect Marvel comics, but I never got into the movies. Too old for that, I think. But what can I say?
You never know. All it takes is
Yeah,
one.
no, that's true. That's true. I still have my old comics.
There you
still
go.
have them all.
Hey, they may be worth something.
Some of them are. Some of them are. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But don't get me started on that one. But anyways, no, I really appreciate you coming in to talk, and maybe sometime in the near future we can set up another time to talk. I get the feeling that there's a lot of areas and things that we didn't talk about, and
yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah, I would like that very much. And okay, so for everyone, my usual wrap up, which is that neither of us are doctors, although Tina is a medical professional, but none of this is to be seen as medical advice. If you're having any kind of an issue, please go and see your own medical support doctors, whoever it happens to be, hospital, whatever is appropriate for what you need. And with that, I will say what I usually do, which is that I will be seeing everybody next week. And thank you, Tina, one more time for having come on the podcast.
Thank you.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.